Welcome back to another text rehearsal lesson. Here we are, going over the Raven one more time, and we're going to see how far we can get. We've got about a page and a little bit left. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 verses left. So let's see how much we can power through here. I've talked a bit about connection, the sound, the thought, the intention. I've talked a little bit about emphasis, full stops, images, key words, contrasting things, punctuation. Now I'm going to talk about, in this lesson here, this video, I'm going to talk a bit more about modulation. If you watched the previous classes, you will have seen me going all over the place with my modulation. By modulation, I mean my modulators, my volume, speed, pitch, pause, melody, rhythm, tone. The things that go up and down, the things you can modulate and change. In this one, we're going to get to some really challenging bits actually because, well, for one reason, this room has a lot of hard surfaces in, as you can probably hear from the microphone. So I don't want to go too loud, because if I do, it does a nasty sort of buzz on the microphone. But there's some exclamations, and in fact, he even says, I shrieked at one point. So we need to shriek. I think he says that at some point, that he shrieks. So I'm going to need to go to some higher volume, but I don't want to crash out the mic. And also, I need the volume to be justified. Whatever modulation you do, there needs to be justification for it. You can practice, you can rehearse doing lots of different modulation. But on the performance, by the time you get there, it needs to feel connected. It needs to feel real, and like there's a reason for it. There's a certain reason why you're doing that higher volume or lower speed. You're going very slowly. You can't just go very slow for no reason. It's going to feel weird and sort of awkward. And it takes a bit more practice, I think, to find that. And I used to make this mistake with clients. I used to try to go at it from that angle. I still don't really think it's a mistake, but a lot of people would lose patience. And I understand why. Because when you say it, when you try and do a really low volume or a low, like an extreme modulator, something you're not used to using, that's the interesting part, really. That's the big clue, is there'll be people who speak very, very fast, and they would find it so difficult to speak slowly. They'd be like, why am I doing it that slow? It feels, they wouldn't even ask why. They'd just be like, it just feels wrong. No, it doesn't feel right. I feel like it needs to be fast here. You feel that way for everything. You feel it needs to be fast all the time. The slower speeds for somebody who's used to talking very fast, they need to be justified, or you try them, and this is the really difficult part, I think, is a lot of people, I don't want to say lack the imagination because it sounds bad, rude. They don't lack the imagination, they're just not used to using imagination in this way, where you think of contexts where that modulation would be necessary. For example, let's pick a bit. Let's example this. This exemplar. Okay, so if we go from then this ebony bird beguiling, so just after the raven has come in, fluttered up onto the bust of Paulus, he's gone from all very creepy vibes to then, you could do this really slow. because he's like thinking about it. The thought is slowly changing. We'll try it slow first, and then we'll try it fast, right? So if I do, then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. You could go really slow, like he's noticing these things, or you could go fast. Let me just go fast mechanically. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Probably the words just went like, just washed over you like noise there, right? Because they weren't connected in any way. There was no justification. They were just dead words coming out of my mouth. There was no thought or intention behind it. So I just imagine it flies up onto the bust, and then and that alleviation of the gloominess and the tension is making me almost laugh a little bit. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Even faster. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, said I, art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. That last, second till last line. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. It felt natural to go faster. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Because there's an exclamation mark at the end, but also just from tell me, it was like I'm impressing upon it, I'm imploring it to, like, tell me, please. I need to know. The intention is to know. And the obstacles are, or the stakes, like, what is it? It's the objective. Like, I want to know, like, it's kind of funny because you're entering into a dialogue with a bird, which is a little unnatural, but we know this is sort of taken from Edgar Allan Poe's life, so I sort of imagine him doing it, and somehow in his character it fits for me that he's like, the bird would come in. We've done this when you talk to a cat and you're like, hey, what are you doing here? You're just chilling, are you? Yes. Do you like it here? Do you come here often? Like, you sort of have these conversations like in a jokey way, knowing that it can't really understand you, but also you're sort of communicating in a way. I feel like that's the sort of tone right here, especially given what just happened. Sitting alone at night, it's very creepy, it's very tense. Tapping on the door, you open, there's no one there. You say, no? And then you hear someone whisper back the word, you go back inside, you're like, what on earth is going on? And then you hear the tapping again, louder, and you go over, you open the door, and then, boom, the raven comes in, jumps up above the bus. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. So the bird comes in, like, it's got this, like, and it's sort of like, it just makes you laugh. Like, it's kind of a weird situation. You thought it might be like a ghost outside, like, might it be Lenore, your lost wife? And it's like this raven comes in and hops up, and you're like, and then it's looking at you, and you're looking at it. It beguiles your sad fancy into smiling. And this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, so you're talking to the bird now, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, and I tend to go slower for key words. Then this ebony bird, beguiling, slow the images as well, beguiling my sad fancy. I had a sad face and then it turned into a smiling one, into smiling by the grave keyword and stern keyword, so I can imbue it with that quality. And when I slow down and get that vibration of that feeling of those things, decorum of the countenance it wore, decorum of the countenance it wore. There's a lot going on in the sentence. And I'll go slower so people can process that and imagine it. Like it's hard to do the line too fast all the way. Then this ebony bird beguiling man, it's like you've already lost the image. Then this I can do quickly. Then this, so ebony bird beguiling my sad, I can do quick. My sad fancy into quick, into smiling. By the grave, by the can be fast. By the grave and stern and can be fast. Decorum of the counter of these little connecting words can be quick, and the keywords and images can be slow. That's what I'm drawn to there. And I would not want to go too slow. There's a lot of keywords and images together. And so with those little spare part words, I want to sort of pick up the pace a little bit. And the verse is helping me do that because it keeps it squashed into the rhythm. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven. Ghastly, I should have hit that craven a bit more. It's on the end of the line. I kind of threw that word away. I don't know if you felt that. As I said it, my mind was already moving on. Thou, I said, art sure no craven. That was a bit better. Art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven from the nightly shore. Wandering from the nightly shore. And the words, if you think the person is choosing his words, so he's looking at something about it hits him then as ghastly, ghastly, grim. The next comma, the thought changes direction as he notices the grimness. Grim and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. That's all the thought. Hyphen. So then he suddenly gets the impulse to know its name. And then, again, it's that hyphen that helps me speed up a bit more for the tell me what thy lordly name, tell me what thy lordly name is, tell me what thy lordly name is. It's kind of giving the bird a bit of respect there because you look with mien of lord or lady, stern decorum, countenance it wore. It's like a sort of, I'm picturing like a Lord Tywin sort of energy from this bird. Lord Tywin Lannister from Game of Thrones. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be I feel like I come in that with like I'm a poet talking though thy crest. It's like although your chest feathers are like trimmed and shaven, they've been pulled out completely. It says shorn and shaven, so they've been trimmed. Thou, I said, art sure no craving. Okay, so maybe it's like it is like a domesticated bird, but it's not got the attitude of being a domestic. It's got its own soul going on, which is quite a confrontational. It's not the right word. It's a law unto itself I'm getting from this bird. Then this ebony bird, and I'm going to go to the context as well, remembering this night. Then this ebony bird beguiling my... Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven. Ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. And you can do an exclamation mark, low volume. You can do it like, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. I started off kind of loud. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Shore, as long as the energy is bottled. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. It always feels unnatural to stick at one volume or speed or pitch. And those three volume, speed, pitch tend to all go together. If you get louder, you tend to get faster and higher in pitch. If you're trying to go faster, you tend to get much louder and higher as well. And if you're going slower, you tend to get quieter and deeper. Naturally. So there'll be these peaks and troughs. Everything's peaks and troughs with modulators. It needs to swell and then slowly abate. And then every now and then you get little surprises, like suddenly it's fast, and then the rhythm can completely change. I mean, the rhythm in this, it has its variation built into the verses like we looked at last time with the rhyming scheme. But let's do this. Let's try and move on from this verse, because I think we already did a bunch of these verses last time. So I need to crack on. Notice my modulation as I do this. Faster, slower, louder, quieter. Higher in pitch, lower in pitch. Just think about those three. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven. Ghastly, grim, and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore, tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore, for we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast, upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by replies so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then, upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch! I cried. Thy God hath lent thee. I was saying wretch at the Raven then. But he's talking about himself. He's the wretch. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee by these angels, he hath sent thee respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh, quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the Raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil! Exclamation marks. What did you notice about my volume, speed, and pitch variation? It's not the same for the entire line. It varies all over the shop. And I'm noticing as well that when I'm doing it, it's kind of like there's like a certain awareness as I'm doing it about making things a little different. And actually that's a big part, is as I'm doing it, I'm kind of feeling where it would be unconscious or repetitive to do a certain modulation. You got to get out of the mechanics and you got to follow the present moment of what's happening and express that present moment. That's what I'm focusing on. And I can feel when I could just sort of fall into the path of least resistance and just make it the same. But the Raven still beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. I mean, maybe we could try this, where I just kind of go up and down without much variation beyond that. But the Raven still beguiling my sad fancy. But the Raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling. Straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking that this ominous bird of yore, what's this grim, ungainly, ghastly, it's already too repetitive. Or was it okay? Does it feel okay to you? Because it feels repetitive to me. Now I'm just going to respond. It's like you have to go to that moment of being that character and saying this, and it's you. And even though you're talking in the past tense, it's all sort of happening for the first time. I felt like there were some nice moments when I did it previously in this video, like 3 or 4 minutes ago when I was doing it. This part, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and on the but the Raven still beguiling. That felt mechanical, and I tried to get away from that as soon as possible because I could feel it. Like I've already said that, but the Raven still beguiling all my fancy. It was the keyword still. Because previously we had, but Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. Where I said beguiling was the same. It should be, but the raven still beguiling still beguiling all my fancy into smiling. Beguiling, still doing it. That sort of tone, like that, he's still doing it. It doesn't have to be like that, it can be different, but it needs to sound different from earlier. Then this ebony bird beguiling, it's like I choose that word for the first time, like it's beguiling me, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. Then later on it needs to be the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling. Straight I wheeled a cushioned seat. I am overthinking it now. I'm doing different stuff with it. When the more you're doing it without the commentary as well, the more you can sort of get into the flow. Like I'd go from the previous, like here when I did startled. Previously I didn't show startled. I said startled. The stillness should have been. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken. Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast, and followed faster, till his songs one bird. I always breathe there. I think it needs to go much faster there, because there's no punctuation from between what it utters all the way to bore, which is like 2.5 lines, which is quite long. So we need to, here we go. We're going to go right back, and then we're going to go all the way through to midway on the next page. So, and watch how I'm sort of living in the moment as it's happening. Here we go. It's really warm in here. Oh, we can use that. We can use the heat. Oh, like he's sort of like confused and like tired, you know, like, oh, it's a lot. But the raven sitting on the the raven sitting lonely on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at reply, so I need to learn these lines. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at reply. I'll try again. At the stillness. Startled at the stillness. I think there's another line where I say that. Startled. Woo. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by replies so aptly spoken. Doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of nevermore. That felt better actually, like feverish. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna get feverish. Here we go. Wind it back even further. Much I marvel this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if in nah. Right, one more time. I'm sorry. As if his soul in that one word he did outpour. The text is like a beast. It's like a big wild stallion on the reins, and sometimes if you let it get away from you, you're going to start to stumble. So it sounds good in your head, but it's not. You gotta rein it in just 5%. Let me rein it in 5%. I'm just gonna go from the top. Sorry. Not sorry. Let's do this, okay? Let's do this. And listen and see what you can get from this. I'm going over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And you have to start to apply your attention, your mind. Start to think and discern and hear and see what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. Which bits am I doing the same? Those are the dead bits. Even if they sound good, that's where I'm going path of least resistance. And I don't want to do that. Although some bits lend themselves to a certain energy and rhythm over others. So that it might sound a little similar, but where it sounds the same as previous times, I'm not connected. I'm just making noise that sounds nice to me. And we need to fight through every word. There's a cost to every word. So put us right in. And then I'm going to stop laughing in between takes. If I mess up, I'm just going to wind it back and then continue carefully, okay? Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Ah, distinctly I remember, 'twas in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. So that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently, my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door, darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, Lenore. Merely this, and nothing more. Back into my chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped nor stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Paulus just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore, though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, said I, art sure no craven. Ghastly, grim, and ancient raven from the nightly shore, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Thou, I said, art sure no craven. Ghastly, grim, and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast, upon the sculptured bust of Paulus, upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such a name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather then he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered. Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, Nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by replies so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy and to fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining, with the lamplight gloating o'er, she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. I'm going to go back, and there's no punctuation after censer, so I want to go straight through. It's the end of the line, so I'll lift censer and continue. I think the pace is good. And there are some bits I could go slower, but I did that previous, trying new things. Then, methought, the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite, respite and nepenthe from the memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. So he's thinking, when he feels the air getting denser and the perfume sensing, he's thinking some angels have entered. And they're like, hey, the raven is there to help you stop thinking about Lenore. You were looking for your books for surcease of sorrow. Well, is this little distraction for you? It's God. God sent the raven to distract you and give you something to think about. That's where he's going with this, actually. And actually, the more of the truth you play in that, the deeper it will get. She shall press, evermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee respite, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff, this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. So the raven kind of takes a dump on that. It's like, what? Prophet, said I. Prophet. Like, you think you can predict the future? Prophet. Oh, Mr. Prophet, said I. Thing of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil. Whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? In Gilead. He's saying, like, is there healing for my grief? Tell me, I implore. I think it's like he's having a reaction now, and I'm trying to follow his thinking behind this. So you could profit. Oh, you're telling me this? No, wait. You're telling me I'm never going to see her again. Oh, so you're a prophet now. A prophet? Is it like he's realizing? Prophet. Oh my. I'm going to see it as a prophet this time. We'll try that. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Oh yeah, because I say, oh, respite quoth. This kind nepenthe, this, I'm going to be relieved of these mournful thoughts about Lenore. Oh, thank you, God, for this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil. Whether tempter sent or tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted. So all this sentences he's building up to asking it. So he goes, oh, is it telling me the future? Wait. So God is saying, no, you'll never have any rest. No, that can't be right. Either you're from God and you're giving me this prophecy, or you're from the devil and you're giving me prophecy. But either way, I don't care. I need to know, is there balm in Gilead? Am I going to get respite from this? Prophet. Kind of losing the exclamation mark. Forget about the exclamation mark for now. Prophet, said I. thing of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted on this desert. Ugh. Indigestion. Let's have a drink. Let's have a drink and check the time. We don't have forever. Yeah, we're gonna have to go soon. Wow. How time flies when you're reading Poe. Prophet, said I, thing of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil. Whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate yet all undaunted on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil. Prophet still, if bird or devil. By that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul, with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aiden it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore! Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken! Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door, take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door! Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust on the pallid bust of Paulus just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight gloated o'er. And the lamplight gloated o'er him streaming, throws his shadow on the floor. And the lamplight o'er him streaming, throws his shadow on the floor. Throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. I think we'll end there. You probably got some reverb on the mic there. That's kind of the problem here. I'd love to yell, go bananas. Okay, what's not been charged here yet, but we start to access at some point, I'm feeling it myself, is the obstacles and the objectives. Like, he wants relief. When he actually said, "Oh, quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore," I was thinking, why would you want to forget? I guess because it's so painful to him. And I think he's already lost a bit of his mind there, because why would you want to forget the rare and radiant maiden? Your wife. Why would you want to forget her? There should be a precious memory to be cherished, not drowned in, as Hild in The Last Kingdom says. You know, her memory should be cherished, not drowned in a sea of ale and bosoms. Last Kingdom reference. If you watch that show, it's amazing. All right, we'll finish there. Hopefully you got something from modulation there. There's so much that goes on underneath. And actually, I think what it comes down to is playing an objective. There's something the character wants and he's willing to overcome so many obstacles and invest so much to get it. And that's the thing missing for me there is I think, and it needs to be present from the very start. I've touched it slightly, but it needs to be much stronger. Is the bitter, bitter grief of losing Lenore. And that is the emotional treasure trove that will create naturally as a byproduct of trying to achieve the objective of just getting some respite from thinking about her. That will create all the modulation and emphasis to such a degree that will have people feeling that grief in themselves and their own battles with grief. And ultimately, that's what is going on here, I think. So next time we shall properly finish, and we'll go through the entire thing one more time, and we'll put it all together, and we might talk about some of these objectives and obstacles and things. And that will be this text totally rehearsed. And then hopefully I'll know it off by heart at that point. So I might not even need this. We can do a proper performance. All right. Till next time, I'll see you then. One last thing, remember, when you improvise speak, you do all these things naturally without thinking about it because you're just going for an objective. And all the modulation, all the emphasis, it is all coming naturally in whatever order you believe is going to get you what you want. And it's limited only by the range you have available in your instrument. And that's what you need to practice with text. All right. Peace, Speechsmiths.